Welcome to the Work Talk podcast. My name is John. I'm the host, and this is talks with people in the Bay Area about their jobs, their business, their personal projects, what drives them, their mindset. And in this episode, I talked to Pete A. Turner. He's a podcaster, which is very interesting because we talk a lot about podcasting, how he started, and we even exchange ideas as someone who has like 12 episodes and he has like 300 or 1,000 or something like that. He's done it a lot longer. So we exchange some ideas. He gives me some tips, which is pretty helpful. But he gives his background on how he started, where he's going, the shows he's doing. And his background, by the way, he was a spy and he used to be in combat. He's got shot at, so he's a badass motherfucker. We didn't talk too much about that. We kind of delve into it. But maybe, if you want to learn more about that, check out his stuff. But that's this episode of the Work Talk podcast. So let me shut up now and introduce our pod sesh, Pete A. Turner. Pete, welcome to the Work Talk podcast.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, listeners, and I started this 32 days ago. I went on Twitter, started talking with people, and then Pete was one of the first people I started chatting with. And instantly you're saying, hey, how could I help? Hey, maybe you should interview this guest. So I really appreciate you supporting my humble podcast.
Well, it's my pleasure to be on. Anytime I can support someone who's doing this kind of thing, I want to do it. I want to be part of it.
Sweet. Tell the listeners and myself about your work.
Well, so I've got to say this just because it's a big piece of my background. I was a spy in the Army. I've done a lot of combat time, 70 plus months in combat zones. I've talked to incredible people along the way, and that is a foundation for what I've done. So because of that, I've interviewed thousands of people in a dozen countries. So I've got a big background in interviewing, and I wanted to do something with my experience, tell the story. Because look, when I say combat, you have no idea what to really think. And so I have to try to explain this thing. Like, why is it so hard? Why do we struggle? Why don't we get the results we want? That's kind of my job because I know what the ground truth is. And that, so a lot of times, one of my big things is like theory is up here and policy, and ground truth is so far it's impossible to even understand. So that's the basis for everything that I do, whether it's cultural work or working helping corporations hire veterans better, or running my shows, the Popping the Bubble show or Break It Down show, which are my two main podcasts.
Right. I think when I was reading about you, I was like, geez, this guy, I was like slightly intimidated, but in the same time, I was kind of wowed. I was kind of like, this guy got some pretty fucking badass stories probably.
I do. I do. That's what graduates.
And right now you do two podcasts and you do consulting work with companies.
Yep. Yeah.
You work on both of them very equally. How do you manage all that?
Well,
you kind of have like a portfolio career. You're not just someone who has a regular job.
Yeah, no, I can't because, veterans struggle to have a regular job. So I've been like a wild horse for so long. I'm really not employable in the traditional sense. They don't want me and I frankly don't want them. I'm always willing to work at a job, but what seems to work best is me doing work to show what I can do and to display my skills.
Yeah, if it's for some reason you're boxing me because I was a veteran, then let me go and just do my own thing.
Right. Or like, we don't want you to make any calls on your own. We don't trust your judgment. And I'm like, my judgment kept me alive. Like, I've been on 1,000 combat patrols.
You're in Iraq. You're in the heat of it. You're getting shot at too, right?
All the time. And I don't mean that to brag, but it's just a fact. Like, when you've been on as many patrols, you've seen it all. You've had bombs, everything, all of it has happened. So,
all right, we got to do another podcast with you, just telling some war stories.
All right. Yeah.
And whatever you can tell us.
Oh, it's all, I can tell all of it. Anything I can't tell, I don't talk about anyhow. And there's things I can't talk about, but I just don't. So,
yeah. Oh, and listeners, I want to give you some context in case you're not watching this on YouTube. Pete is outside in the beautiful weather right now. So if you hear some birds chirping or dogs barking, that's why.
Yeah.
And a shout out to, it's nice here in my area too. And if you're a veteran listening to this, Pete has a lot of insight on helping veterans. So reach out to Pete if you have some career advice or have some questions you want answered.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Anybody who's wants help with culture, podcasts, veteran things, that's what I do. I help people out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So from the work you're doing right now, what is something that's really memorable for you?
That's a great question. What's memorable? What's memorable is, look, I was just talking to my buddy John, and when I came
Hmm.
back, I couldn't get hired anywhere. Right, 1,000 applications, never got an interview anywhere. So I had to become a
That's
handyman.
crazy.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
is crazy, and it's not like I don't have skills. I have a lot of skills. So,
Hmm.
and anybody who wants to look at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see. But we went from 4 years ago at World Cup in a Mountain Mike's Pizza doing odd jobs, and we were taking a break eating Mountain Mike's Pizza. To last night, I'm talking to world famous musicians who want to be on my show, who are like, "Hey, there's Pete and John, my their co-host, and you guys got to meet these guys." So we've gone a long way in 4 years. So wherever you're at, you can do it. You can have a great idea and do something that you're passionate about. It doesn't mean you slide all in and just say, I'm just going to do this and disregard everything else. Like, you need help. You need to have some success along the way, and we've had that. So the most memorable thing is just going, how did all of this happen? I'm just going to keep working hard and having these wonderful experiences.
Yeah. Who were some of those? Who were some of those artists?
Well, we had Stuart Copeland from the Police, and like, you can't be more notable than that. Like, that's one of the most successful drummers of all time. Any list, he's in the top 10. That's just one. We sat in his house and had a great conversation. But what takes this is the thing that's different for us, is when we're done with him, he stands up and says, "That's probably the best interview I've ever had." And this is a guy that's been interviewed 1,000 times. So those are the things. His partner Andy Summers said the same thing. He's like, "This was a great interview. You guys are so good at this. Thank you for coming and talking to me." That's those are the things that stick, and we hear it all the time. I mean, we're good at it. We know what to do. We can describe how to do it, and
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
repeatedly get told, "Wow, that was an hour," and they look around like, "Wow, let's do that again." So that's our standard, and that's what I like to ruminate on. Those are my KPIs. Those are my key performance
Hmm.
indicators. Is, are the guests blown away? And they are. So I keep doing it.
That's awesome. That's your kick. That's your oxygen.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the break it down show, right?
Right, right. That's primarily the break it down show I was talking about. Popping the bubbles a little more startup based and
Hmm.
technology based. So we're looking at emerging technologies. We're looking at founders and the people in that world. So it's not that world has stars in it, but we're not necessarily looking for those stories. So I would love to interview Jeff Bezos or whoever, but
Man,
yeah,
I think
that's
he's one of the best
what it's about.
entrepreneurs right now.
Oh yeah,
All the stuff he's
for
doing.
sure. I want to grab some of the people that 5 years, 10 years from now, I'm like, yeah, we had them 10 years ago. So we look at a slightly
Hmm.
different
Hmm.
pedigree of guest, but it's mind blowing the stuff we learn on that show. It's incredible.
Yeah, I listened to some of the podcasts talking about micro stem cells, devices, all
Crazy.
this stuff. It's really
Yeah,
cool. Check
yeah.
it out, Popping the Bubble. But then Break It Down show, that is like a variety show, right? Because it sounds like you talk about a bunch of
Everything.
different things. I feel like I'm almost listening to a radio talk show.
Yeah, well, that's what we want it to be. We want it to be a conversation that you want to be part of. And so we for sure talk about combat all the time. And I get deep into combat. So like, sometimes it's going to be over your head, but I don't care, because that's not my job, is to figure out, like, I have to keep the guest up to speed, but sometimes I have to get out in front of the guest so then I can color in up to where we got to at that point, if that makes sense. So, like,
Hmm.
if this
Hmm.
conversation is an A to E conversation and we're talking at the E level, other shows are going to get you from B to C to D, all the way up to that E level. So
Okay.
there's
Okay.
combat stuff in there. There's artists, all kinds of artists, whether it's musicians, painters, movie makers, writers, screenplay writers, everything, comedians, all kinds of stuff. Because life is a mosaic, and so
Sweet.
each
Yeah.
each show is a tile, and we put that tile in the wall. And sometimes we're over on the left side of the show, talking about um, you know social issues, and sometimes we're over here talking about combat. Sometimes over here talking about love, and you just
Hmm.
keep
Hmm.
putting tiles in, and you just reflecting what the world is.
I like that. The mosaic. I like that description.
Yeah, yeah, we figured that out early. It worked.
So maybe my podcast will end up looking like yours in the future.
It inevitably will. I mean, you may have a more linear approach, where it's more of a thin thread, but that's
Yeah.
fine, because a thread, you can make a tapestry with a thread. You know,
Yeah. How many episodes have you done so far and Break It Down?
we put up 269 today.
I'm at 12.
You know what? I was at 12 at one point. Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember how it was when you first started podcasting? I want to hear kind of the origin stories of of how you were in the beginning stages.
It's ridiculous. We got so lucky. I mean, between my partner John and I, we knew enough people that knew people that we were able to get into rooms that we were amazed already from the start because people are like, yeah, sure. Because look, when I ask people, I say, I want to invite you. I want you to be my personal invitation to come on my show, and I want to talk to you about what you do. And people just open up with that, you know. And then I also say, look, and this is true. A lot of the people that have been on, like, tell people that you're a veteran and that veterans listen because we want to talk to those people. We want to interact with them.
Mm,
So I say that, and not everybody says yes, but when people say, like, how did you get so and so, like, they don't talk to anybody. I'm like, I asked, I asked them, and they
hmm.
say yes. So even at show 12, we were already getting Grammy winners and all kinds of people. Our musical guests have sold. I think we're going to hit 1 billion albums sometime, probably this year. We'll hit 1 billion albums sold from all of our musical guests.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
How did you make those connections?
I worked at it. You know, like it's the personal network, which is always growing.
Okay, okay.
It's researching where people are at and talking to them. And I've reached the point now where PR companies are aware of who we are, and they come to us and they're like, "Hey, like, yeah, I can say this. We're gonna have Danny Trejo on the show, you know, and everybody loves Danny Trejo. I mean, he's that actor. He's like the scary Mexican actor guy. He's long hair, so he's always doing projects. And so their company that does his PR is like, yeah, you guys do a great job. We want to have Danny on the show. Like, okay. So
All right.
it grows into that by approaching it from 15 different ways, and that's the same thing as spy
Mm-hmm.
work. I want to have my network when I'm spying so strong that the information just comes to me. If the information is coming to me, then it's a better quality experience. So I just try to build relationships and trust, and then the things that I need come.
I see. So I see the connection. Like if you could do all those making connections with people, and when you're in combat, like this is nothing.
Well, it's still something, but yeah, I know I can do it in harder situations for sure. It's still, I don't want to lie and say it's easy. I put a lot of time and work into, like
Yeah,
you do, you know, into your guest care, your guest management. Like, here's what's
I
going to
know.
happen, right?
I just got to be a negligent husband, and I could do this.
So easy. Yeah. Yeah. You got to
So
have the,
that's the secret, everybody. You just got to be a negligent partner.
I can't talk to you, honey. I got to talk to my guest. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd
exactly.
rather talk to Pete than my wife.
I got to write this 20-minute email so that, you know, yeah, exactly. I do that all the time. I'm constantly
Yeah,
engaging. If you looked at my spreadsheet for, like, which I had to build a spreadsheet for guest management, because there's people that are like a year into the future, there's 3 months away, there's 6 months, and there's people that I'm just searching for. So you got to work all that. You have to organize that work. And the only
yeah.
way to do it is a spreadsheet, and it's huge. I like, and I constantly have to go through it. So whatever you're doing now, expect that to get a lot harder.
All right, I'll come to you for some tips and best practices.
No,
Hey,
no, I'm learning from you. You're doing a great job.
and what drives you though? So you know you could do it, but what makes you want to keep at it?
Well, look, I'm not going to lie and say it's all easy because nothing in life is.
Mm,
It's hard. And there are days when I wish we made more money because we don't make a lot of money. And the money you do make, you're like, you know, you can't be extravagant. You've got to invest it back into the business somehow. So that part's not easy at all. And it's a struggle for sure. Like, we're always everybody's trying to figure out how to monetize. And some people have figured it out, and that's wonderful. We haven't gotten to that point. So we make some money, but we need to make a lot more. And that fuels me, is like, I know we're figuring it out. Our machine, I'm always talking like I'm tweaking the machine and it's getting better, and it's constantly improving so I can continue to do this. If it wasn't getting better, I would have to stop, but that's not the case. So that's one of the things that fuels me, and it's a lot of fun. God's honest
mm-hmm,
truth.
mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, I
find
see you always
myself,
talk about
yeah,
your interest. You're interested in people's stories, and same thing with me.
yeah,
I'm kind
yeah.
of nerdy about that. I like reading people's stuff. I'm nosy. I
Hmm.
read local bloggers, and
Oh yeah. No, I mean, you
yeah,
want to read about my stuff. I got stuff all over the place on Medium, on LinkedIn. I'm always writing things, and I try to write. I don't have enough time. I wish I did, but I try to write about the experiences because they're so incredible. Like John and I, or Sandra and I, depending on which show it is, we'll sit back and just be like, "Oh my God!" Like, we'll cry. All these things happen. So, like, that is my life. I am not wealthy, but I am enriched by the
mm-hmm,
experiences from
mm-hmm.
having these podcasts. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. I started paying people $5 on Amazon to just give me their feedback who watch my podcast.
Yeah.
And I just kept asking people, tell me what you think. That's my KPI. I just want some comments of people who said
Sure.
that was either enjoyable, I learned something, I know about a resource I could take advantage of, or I was
Yeah.
inspired. And most of the time, what hands down, what most people said was is just listening to the people's stories, and that was what they were mainly interested in doing. So I kind of wrote a mission statement.
Nice.
When someone says, why should we listen to your podcast? What's it all about? I say my podcast is about enjoying, learning, and being inspired by the
Great.
stories of what people do for a living.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, those are the things you have to have. People ask me all the time what my podcast about. It's about what you like. It's about life.
Yeah.
We gather perspectives and to illustrate life. That's really what it is.
Right.
And then if there was one thing, and I know you have a lot of young people in your audience, so I'll say this: when you're trying to figure out what it takes, right? Understand that nobody cares, and I don't mean to be hard about that, but that's true. Nobody cares until you can make something they care about. How do you do that? Well, look, everybody has a great idea. Everybody's got a song. Everybody's got a book or a movie. Everybody. So then the next thing is execution. Can you write that book? Right?
Yes.
And then once you've written a book, honestly, nobody cares. Like you're going to sell it to your friends and family. And if it breaks out, that's great, but that's largely out of your control. It's next is the repetition. And if you can repeatedly do this, like do 250 shows, like for you, get to 30, get to 50. So 13 is where most people quit for podcasts. So congrats.
Oh, really? All right. Yep. I got my 2 next guests lined up this week, so I'll pass the 13.
You're going to go right by it, I'm sure. And then 52, right? Got to get past like a year's worth of shows if we do one a week. And then after that, like how to do it. So that's the thing for young. So constantly get better and keep repeating and just invest in yourself all the time. Like those reps. It's like being in the gym. And you can't go to the gym and get swollen one day, It's
right.
You're always getting better. You're always learning new exercises, trying new things, breaking through plateaus. It's never about one moment of brilliance. And if you do happen to catch that, wonderful. But you don't plan for that. You plan to work harder than everybody else. And if you're not sure if you are, then that's where you have to improve. How can I work harder? How can I produce more efficiently?
Yep. Exactly. You're giving me goosebumps, Pete. I love this. Goosebumps, folks. And everyone says the same thing. How does someone get into this field? Just start. Just start doing it.
Start and do not stop and do more than what you think you can do. The other thing, advice I always give out is to go slower. Slower is always better, especially and if it's a host, right? Your job is to control the meter of the interview. Like if I get too amped up and tweaking and going too fast, you got to go, hold on a second, and then put the brakes on things.
Okay.
So slower is always better in these kind of podcast environments. And in general, a lot of things that are performance based, if you're slow, you can always speed up. But if you're going too fast, you just kind of get like a.
It's weird to slow down after.
That's
good to think about. One of my ideas for my podcast is I'm going to have these pillars. One of it is talking to people from various careers like this. The second pillar is to talk to recruiters and hiring managers about getting a job, networking. Then the third pillar, I'm going to call it the regulars. It's going to be people who are on my show every week who are also doing some type of project like mine. And we're going to literally talk like strategy, like chess, like what are we doing? And we might eventually once in a while have a guest who's higher than us come in and kind of mentor us, and we just record that whole roundtable conversation.
I think all that stuff's great, and if it's not, the world's going to let you know, but who cares? Like some shows are better than others. I clearly don't have any idea because I'll be like, that one's terrible. And there'll be like thousands
kind of subjective sometimes.
Commenting. Yeah. You're like, you know what? Just create it and put it up there. And just keep on going, and you're going to have so many ideas. You're going to have to do less. Again, you have to slow down. Like I can't do all of these great ideas.
I can't write YouTube videos, contacting people, meeting people at like live events.
Right. Yeah. At some point, you're like, I can't do all of it. What am I doing? And then you winnow, and then you like, okay, let me improve this.
Right, listeners. I think it's really interesting because when I'm talking to Pete, his main thing is doing podcasts, and I'm doing podcasts, so it's very reflective And as you're talking, I'm thinking the same thing. Like I feel like there's too much things I want to do. I want to start writing articles. I want to start going to Chamber of Commerce meeting, business. I forgot the name. I can't even talk right now. But like,
go slower.
Not enough time. Go slower. Exactly. And then I have my day job, so it's hard to manage it all. It's what.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what advice would you have for someone who wants to start a podcast? I mean, I could tell the audience, and I have a vlog where I'll talk about my perspectives on starting a podcast,
Yeah.
but I'll have you talk and share. If someone, a listener, is wanting to make a podcast as well, what's your advice?
Well, first off, reach out to me anytime on Twitter, and you know this at PA Turner, right? And I'll talk to you. I will
Yes.
help.
Or hashtag America's favorite spy.
That's right. Hashtag America's favorite
We're gonna
spy.
make that
I got you.
we're gonna make that your thing.
I
Phil, right?
want to get
Is it
shirts
Phil?
done right away.
Yeah, Phil made that up, right? I don't know who Phil is, but shout outs to Phil.
Phil Green has a podcast I'm helping him with called What's in Store, and he's going to take emerging technologies and how they affect the retail space. I mean, it's incredible, all of these things that are coming. Phil's a buddy of mine. So, yeah.
Yeah, emerging technologies like VR.
All of it. Like
Oh, okay.
micro cameras that look at dwell time at a rack. And you figure out how people move through a store, what they look at,
I
and
see.
everything.
To improve the operations of the business, the
Yeah,
efficiencies.
right. And
Yeah,
to
okay.
monetize position on racks. Like these racks
Oh,
here have a longer dwell time. You know,
I
and
see.
there's a company we have popping the bubble. The episode hasn't come out yet, but these guys have figured out how to measure the mouse movement and track that in terms of like what happens in buying patterns.
I see. Yeah,
Wow.
it's all about data nowadays.
Yeah.
We could have this ability to do all these things and predict behavior.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
really cool.
So you asked me about podcasts, something I forgot what you said.
Yeah, what advice would you give for someone who wants to do a podcast?
Also, go to Quora. I answer a lot of questions there. Pretty much all the questions that you have already been answered. But in terms of gear, I always recommend. So look, you got to compromise, and you know this. It happens. Like you're going to lose shows. You're going to have quality issues. So
Yep, yep.
you
I
can't
had one show where one guy was completely like almost frozen,
Yeah,
and I said, "Let's just do it."
yeah, right. And you know, you record it and see what happens. But here's my fail-safe kit. It's a Zoom H5 and a couple of Audio Technica headsets with mics, right? Because a lot of the guests that we have,
Hmm.
they aren't seasoned on the mic, and so they move around. But if the mic is attached to their face,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, there's a constant quality variable. And even then, but I'm always about reducing variables. So
Oh,
um,
smart. Okay.
and so here's the thing with my show is I can go anywhere, and I want to be face to face across their table in their house because that's where they're comfortable,
In
right? So
person.
yeah, don't make them leave. Like wear your pajamas. I don't care. You know, sit there and relax. And a lot of notable people. Tim Ferriss doesn't have time to come meet you for coffee, and if he does, great. But I'm gonna get him first because I'm gonna be like, dude, you let me know when you have an hour, and I will be there. You know,
Mm,
and that's a difference maker is being mobile and portable. Those are two different things. Like portable is in your backpack, mobile is I'll go, right? And then just be versatile and be flexible. And if you could do those things, you will get people that other people won't. Yeah, that's just
mm.
how it is. And
Good
then
tip.
you have to ask, you have to follow up, you have to find the words that get you people. Like that's how you get guests. And then the three things you owe, there's three. There's as a host, you owe the guest to be prepared, to be ready, to hype their stuff for them. You owe the audience asking the right question. Keep coloring in so that like when I say something, you're like, hold on, explain that, right? Where the content is. And the third thing is what does the show need? Like mine,
Hmm.
like, hey, don't forget, break it down show. I got to make sure I talk about us. So those are the three things you owe as a host. If you're not
I
tracking
see.
those
I see.
things,
Okay.
yeah,
Got it. Got it. A lot of solid tips.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
believe in a lot of that too, and some of it I'm working on too. Yeah,
yeah,
that's really
yeah.
good.
Like right now, you should be like, yeah, I'm talking P. Day Turner from the Break It Down show. I'm popping the bubble, right? Like you have to say that 3 times per episode. You have to do it. Like
Oh.
that's what
Hmm.
it takes. You say the book, you buy the book on Amazon and you show the book, or you know say I'm going to put the link to the book in the show notes or whatever, so people can go and do it because you owe that to the guest for their time. You know.
I see. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So going really into the tactics of not just the content, but also the guests, the purpose of them here, the bigger picture, the
Hmm.
promotion of them.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yep.
get it. I get it. I'll
Yep.
start incorporating some of that too. I
Yeah. You'll
appreciate
get
the
it.
knowledge.
Yeah. You'll get it. Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm actually going to start wrapping it up. Was there a point you wanted
I was going to say,
to bring up?
like, when you, as a host, when you owe the audience and the guest, when you find something good, don't go past that. Don't be linear. Dive down, ask questions for detail, and get examples. So when I say
Oh,
I'm a spy, you got to go, wait, what? Hold on, tell me about that, and then you explore that for as long as you need
oh,
to, and then you pull us out of that conversation, you know? So you have to find those points that are really interesting and spend time there and not on your piece of paper next to you that has your notes on it, right? That
Yeah. Yeah.
paper is bullshit. And the guest's piece of paper is bullshit. Get them off of their paper by asking them more detailed questions.
Right. Let me actually get a little meta then, since we're talking about this. Like, yeah, that's something I do. I don't have any notes,
Good.
and I don't tell a guest. I tell a guest generally what I'm going to ask, but I don't tell them verbatim questions because I notice they may script it.
Yeah.
But one thing to me is the time. Like when you mentioned the spy part, I kind of did want to delve into it a lot, and I didn't. I decided not to just because I want it to be like 20 to 30 minutes. But I'm
Yeah.
open if it's longer,
Yeah.
and that's why I ended up punting it and saying, "Hey, maybe we should talk about this at another podcast."
Sure. Yeah. No, I think you did that
But
great.
I'm finding that balance. Like, man, I do people want to hear it? Should I? Is it straying away from the overall flavor? Like that's something I'm constantly uh, pushing and pulling
You
with.
know, one thing that's really cool to do is take that and go, look, I was listening to Pete's show, episode whatever. Go listen to that, or go listen to his interview with Jordan Harbinger. They talk a lot about that, and that'll cover the spy stuff. We're not going to cover that. We're going to go in this direction. And
Ah,
that
yeah,
way,
yeah.
you're hooking.
Point them to a spot where they could find out more about it.
Yeah,
Ah,
and
okay.
that's cool. Other podcasters will be like, wait, you drove traffic to my stuff? Awesome. Now you've got a friend, you know?
I like that you're getting into the marketing and strategy side. See, I don't think about that stuff too much.
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
I like
Why answer the
that.
same question
Okay.
that's been answered 100 times, you know?
Yeah. So if they do want, so listeners do want to find out about your spy stuff, where should they go?
Well, they can definitely go to my LinkedIn. There's a lot of stuff there. You can go through the the hundreds of episodes on the Break It Down show. That's where most of it is. Or just ask me a question. Go on Quora and ask me whatever kind of question you want, and I'll answer it to the best of my ability. I'm
Sweet.
slow sometimes because I get asked a lot of questions, but if you grab my attention, especially if you grab my, hey, I'm going to ask a question on Twitter, I'll do my best to answer it that day.
Sweet, sweet. All right, let me wrap it up with this last question. What's the next thing for you?
Well, more podcasts. I got to put a show up tomorrow for Popping the Bubble, and on Friday we put a show up for Break It Down show, and it doesn't. That's what's always
Just
next.
keep
The next
growing it.
episode.
Those two,
Yep.
right?
You know,
Yeah.
video. I want to do more video. That's what I'm working on right now. Is trying to figure out how to put that into what we do and have it be quality. That's the
Oh, I
next thing.
see. Yeah, because I saw some of your YouTube videos of your podcast, but it's like the image, and then it
Yeah.
was just the audio
Yeah.
part.
Yeah. Because I want to be on YouTube, but I don't have the time or the resources to edit video right now, and
Hmm.
so. Like
Yeah,
I
it's a
put a
weird
lot of
thing.
content up. It's meant for people like when they're doing the dishes or laundry or driving.
Yeah, it's weird though. My audience, most of them watch it on YouTube, and
Yeah,
most of them don't use podcasts.
yeah,
But I use podcasts because I write BART, I work out. I don't have time to be on my phone, and it eats up all my eats up all my battery. I'm like, I
yeah,
don't want to watch a fucking video. I'm like, I just want to hear it while I'm walking. So
yeah,
that's how I got into podcasts, and I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan. But Joe Rogan has a podcast, and he had a YouTube video. So that's why I said, let me have both. And because I know a lot of my friends and guess people my age and my cousins, they
yeah,
don't listen to podcasts, they just watch YouTube. So I said, okay, I'll make sure I have both.
yeah. No, you
Yeah.
got to. And then Joe Rogan has multiple channels of the same stuff. So he takes his hour or 3 hours really, and he chops it into pieces. And it's like Joe Rogan's greatest hits, Joe Rogan classics, Joe Rogan controversy, Joe Rogan, And so
Yeah.
like it's just inundating YouTube. It's the same content kind of strategy I would advise a client to do is how do you take the content you have and repackage it so that
Mm,
it's discoverable so that you can become familiar. Like just because you
mm,
again, nobody cares. So like if nobody knows you exist and because you write a book, still no one cares. Like you have to write
right.
and publish and produce and you've got to broadcast all the time to find your fans.
Yeah. That's what I do with my Instagram. Whatever we talk about, I take sound bites and almost like commercials, and I just put it on Instagram. If I
Yeah,
could put the whole thing on Instagram, I would, so then you
yeah,
could just see it.
yeah.
Uh, so that's
I
like
need to find out
what I
how
try
you're
to do a
doing that
lot.
because I've got it. I've been meaning to do that, And like you said, it's a full time job. Like you're like, okay, I'm going to do
Yeah.
Instagram really well.
I
So
know. I like I need some sleep, like, but it's fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
Instagram's really cool. Like the video stuff, I can always tell you how that is because I always played around making videos since 2008 because I used to host video game tournaments,
Yeah,
and we would make videos, we would record the video games. So I've always been into video, so it kind of came naturally for me.
yeah. My degree is in TV radio, so I know how to edit. I just don't know any of the modern software and like the right camera setup. So, I'm going to
Yeah,
figure it out. But
but you can figure it out. Yeah, when
yeah,
you make time for it, on top of the millions of things you
that's
got
it.
going on.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
All right, sweet. Thanks so much, Pete, for coming on to our show and it was almost like you giving me some like best practice advice, which is great.
Yeah, no
And
problem.
just kind of chopping shop with someone in a similar field as myself. You have a great background, awesome. Like listeners, check out his spy stuff. I think that alone could be a movie. I don't,
Yeah.
Pete, when's the book coming out? We'll
That's
see.
another project. It's being written. Actually, you know what I'm doing? And this is God's honest truth. I'm going to podcast it and just make that podcast private and just do an audio book because I'm not going to sit down and type it right now. I just don't have the
Yeah.
time to.
What about getting a ghostwriter? Just you talking to the
Well,
ghostwriter, then they type
that's
it all
a
up.
lot of money to do that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you're talking $30,000 to have someone do it,
Oh, okay.
and then what if it doesn't sell? Like, and it's not about fear, but you have to be practical. Like, am I going to sell enough? I got to pay that guy first,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I had no idea how much they cost. So,
oh, it's a lot of
geez.
money. It's
Never mind. I'm getting my little cousin to do it.
good. That's a good. Everybody got to have a baby cousin that can write.
All right. And if people need to find you, they can find you at Twitter, Pete A. Turner.
Yeah, you can grab me on Facebook. You can grab me on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place. You can find me. I'm easy.
Sounds good. And I'll put it all in the description notes and everything like that.
Great.
So,
Yeah, and I'm glad to promote up what you're doing too on my end. So thanks you a lot
Thank
for
you.
having me on.
Yeah, like I said, I really appreciate the support. So that's it, listeners. Thank you so much. Hopefully you found some insight. Pete, once again, take care. I'll be seeing you on the digital world here and there. And maybe one day we'll meet in person.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do that.
All right, sounds good.
Take care.
Take care, guys.